Welcome back to another edition of the Ohio State of Mind podcast. I am one of your hosts, Michael Chen. On the other side of me is Joshua Keatley. And once again, for the second week in a row, Chris Runyon joins us. Thank you for joining us, Chris. It is episode number 40, the Howard Hopalong Cassidy episode. This one, as I told the boys, this was a very easy choice for me. Hopalong was one of the most famous Buckeyes ever. And 40 is that number. So we've hit that. We've hit a calendar year over doing the podcast. So congratulations to us on our 1-year anniversary. Although it is episode number 40, I do believe we skipped a couple weeks here and there. So we're a little bit over that time frame. But anyways, gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Well, dude, let's not just gloss over the amazing career that Hopalong Howard Cassidy had.
Okay, all right.
Not only was he a Heisman Trophy winner,
all
but
right.
He spawned his son Craig Cassidy was also a starting defensive back for Ohio State, who was also talented enough to not only start at Ohio State, I think 2 years, but went on to play for the Saints. So, and then Hop Cassidy, I know he did not have the most illustrious NFL career, but his NFL career was very John Brockington like where they kind of ran him into the ground in Detroit before they got good. That was obviously the John Brockington story as well. But yeah, I think you're right. That's the definitive number 40, but definitely a Heisman winner, one of the greats. Yada, all that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I shouldn't have glossed over that. I apologize.
We only lost Hop, 5 years ago?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. Right.
He was also a hell of a baseball player, first baseman coach for the Columbus Clippers, too.
Ooh.
So for a long time, back when they were affiliate with the Yankees.
54 national champion, 54, 55 Big Ten champions. 55, they beat USC in the Rose Bowl. He went 3-0 against that team up north. We could go like Heisman, Maxwell, AP athlete, Big Ten, All-American,
NFL champion,
College Football Hall of Fame.
I believe he played,
as you said, Columbus Baseball Hall of Fame too. I did not remember that part of his story, but
he was a hell of a baseball player. And what's ironic is episode 41 is also going to have another Heisman Trophy winner who was also a hell of a baseball player. So very exciting.
Is it?
Yep. And then Hop. The first time I met him was at the Tuttle Mall. Chris Runyon will be familiar with that.
Tuttle. Yeah.
This was when Chris and I used to run around and get autographs, and he was just an old little white guy, and I was like, Dad, that can't be. Dad, did that guy really? Because I think that was the same year. God, I think Will Smith graduated too, so I was used to seeing Will Smith. I think we got autographs from Sean Springs that year. Guys that look like football players, and then we saw Hopalong Cassidy. I was like, bro, what's going on?
I have a not suitable for work Will Smith story that I can share with you guys off the air.
I'm very excited for that. And now that Chris is joining us more often, I do want him to share his Chris Spielman story. Maybe not tonight, but eventually we have to share the Chris Spielman story and what has grown into an intense hatred for Chris Spielman.
Oh, interesting.
Every time I see him on TV, getting into the Lions, Ring of Honor, or this, that, and the third, I'd go to my wife. I'm like, that dude right there. Have I got a story for you? She's like, really?
Oh, that guy. Maybe next time.
Yeah. So I get it. But all right, so let's get into the Buckeye talk. So the biggest news, we had two big pieces of news over the course of the last week. In my eyes, the biggest one, and because we all kind of knew the second one was going to happen, it just had Ryan Day just hadn't made an announcement yet. But the biggest fish left on Ohio State's recruiting board for the 2025 class, offensive tackle David Sanders Jr. The Buckeyes were in his top four, considered at one point in time the leader in the clubhouse. Something that Josh and I talked about a few weeks ago. As the dead period had ended, Ohio State opted not to host recruits on campus that final weekend. And one of the places Sanders ended up visiting that weekend, along with Nebraska, was Tennessee, which he ended up committing to. And this goes back to my hate for Justin. It is long. It burns. It is just everlasting. And this is just throwing gasoline onto the fire because I've had enough. And if you guys have listened to the podcast previously, this is not the first time I'm complaining about Justin Frye. This is probably the millionth time that I'm complaining about Justin Frye because I cannot deal with it anymore. He is the weak link of the recruiting staff. In my eyes, he's also the weak link of the coordinators / position coaches. So, I mean, another out-of-state miss for Justin Frye on the recruiting side of things. They currently have 2 commits on the offensive line heading into the season. Ohio State is on a different level recruiting. They should not be dealing with this. This falls on Justin Frye, and to a certain degree, it does fall on Ryan Day because obviously Justin Frye is working with Ryan Day because we have heard Ryan Day will come in and close recruits for other positions. So if Sanders, in my eyes, Sanders was like top of the board dude, like 1 or 2 up there, right? Because the Buckeyes need offensive linemen really, really bad. And especially in this class, although last class, they did okay. They brought in bodies, but the elite talent wasn't quite there yet. Now, Carter Lowe, great player, but let's be real here. He's an Ohioan. If he didn't go to Ohio State, it would have been a complete shock. But Sanders, out-of-state guy, a little bit more understanding, but when you put so many eggs into one basket and you don't bring it home, this is what we're at. We're stuck. Boys, what do you think?
Well, Chris, I'll let you go first on this subject.
I mean, be honest with you, Mike, you're dead on. He's got what, 1 top 150 recruit since he's been in Ohio State, and it was Montgomery in his own backyard. He's a kid that probably grew up.
Technically, Lowe is as well, but he hasn't signed yet, so we'll give you that. Right.
But he was right in his own backyard, grew up probably wanting and wishing to be a Buckeye someday. And it's not like, we said it last week when, hey, we had Sanders, we had him wrapped up, and then we coasted it in first gear and went across the finish line. And I'm going to go on a limb. I saw it on another website. They had a really good analogy. It was something like, Justin Frye, he's that guy who needs groceries, right? He goes to the grocery store, he grabs his cart, he's looking at the new meats and the ingredients and all this stuff to make a real nice meal, and then he walks over to the produce. But as he walks over to the produce, someone steals his cart. and after that, you know what? He just gets up out of the store, leaves, and goes buys his grocery at the gas station before he goes home. And I mean, that's what it is. Boy. And it's how I feel.
Okay. So let's go over what I agree with first. Let's go over what I don't know, and let's go over, because I did reach out to a lot of people this week. Unfortunately, I was really busy at my day job. But because let's go. Okay. So we all three agree that Justin Frye is on the hot seat. We all three agree with that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So my question going into this conference, and I don't have any issue with this. This should anger everybody, right? I do believe that the David Sanders thing is upsetting. And Mike, I'm glad to hear you say that. Hey, Ryan Day plays a role in this as well, because he does. And that was one thing I tried to get clarity on from some of my contacts is, how big of a role does the head coach make? And, I kind of got laughed at by everybody I talked to. They're like, what do you mean? This guy's a 5-star recruit. Ryan Day was at every goddamn meeting. Ryan Day was probably talking to him more than Justin Frye. And I was like, okay, cool. All right. So that's information. That's information I did not know. I didn't know that was a stupid question. Thank you guys. But that clarifies some things. But I feel like I said, we all agree that Justin Frye is on the hot seat. The problem that I have, and we talked about this in the past, is I don't like to fire and hire guys based off of recruiting rankings, especially at a position like offensive line. And I thought that already. But that was also what I was kind of hearing from these guys that were in the industry. The guys I spoke to, they have coached at Ohio State. Some of them coached at Ohio State. Some of them have coached at multiple FBS schools, and they were kind of like, dude, you can't. The recruiting thing is not you shouldn't hire and fire based off of recruiting, A, and B, you definitely shouldn't hire and fire based off of offensive line recruits, because out of all the places that are harder to scout and all the guys that develop, that's probably got the highest miss rate. It's more about your production, your growth, stuff like that, which we've talked about before, right? So I do think that before I burn him or ask for him to leave, I do want to see the production of this year, because if this offensive line does improve immensely, Simmons takes another step forward, Josh Frye takes another step forward, McLaughlin has no snapping issue, Carson Hinsman is a stud, Tegra Shabola possibly steps up, then I'm not going to have an issue. If you can put 5 3-stars out there and perform at an elite All-American, and 2 of them are All-Americans every year, that's cool. I'm cool with that. Let's rock and roll with that. So when I was reaching out to the people, the common theme was, a common theme was like the hit rate doesn't really match, right? And I went back and I looked at the last 5 recruiting classes on the offensive line, and that's pretty true. Last year's offensive line class, 2 of those guys are starters. I'm talking just 5 stars, just the top 5 guys. 2 of the guys are starters. 1 transferred out already from his original school, and 2 are sitting the bench. The class of 2022, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys were 5 stars. 3 of them are starting right now. 1 is sitting the bench. No, 2 are sitting the bench, and 1 isn't even playing football anymore. 2021 class, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys were 5 stars. 1, 2, 3 aren't even at the same school anymore. 4 were starters. They're either starters this year or J.C. Latham was their first round pick. 2020, this year was actually gangbusters. The top 5 guys, 4 of them were all starters, and they were all drafted relatively high. Only 1 was a guy that was just very, 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 very below average. And then 2019, that year was also gangbusters. The top 5 guys, 4 of them started and were relatively high picks. The number 1 guy that year, though, it's kind of funny because he was it's Brown, who is actually the highest rated recruit in one of the highest rated recruits in Wisconsin history, who transferred to Kansas this past year. Which is kind of funny. And then I went over and looked at the top draft picks: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There was 9 offensive linemen drafted in the first round this past year. 5 of them were 3-star recruits. Only 2 were 5-star recruits. So it's like, okay, after evaluating that, it's like, all right, cool. So I'm not going to, when I evaluate Justin Frye, and again, I agree with you guys, he is on the hot seat. He should be on the hot seat. But the recruiting stuff means nothing to me. If he can pull it together and be productive with this group, I'm cool with it. Not to put on top of that too is we do give him a lot of heat because this will be his 3rd year, but he's only had 1 full recruiting cycle since he's only had 1 full recruiting cycle. So that's another thing too we have to take into account as well. So if he doesn't get any 5-star recruits, I'm cool with that. But if Donovan Jackson's not an All-American, if the offensive line doesn't step up, then I say fire him. But I can't put a guy on the cross just because of what he's doing on the recruiting trail, if that makes sense.
But it's a numbers game as well, though. And that's the problem. The numbers aren't there with Frye. I mean, even if you're going to count his, we're going to throw out 23. Okay, so we'll throw that out, right? Because he got
by the way, too, before I forget, in 2019, one of those 5 stars actually committed to Justin Frye at UCLA. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
Go on, sorry.
So he got hired in January of 22, right? So technically we could throw out the class of 23, right?
Which is fair because most of
which is fine because he didn't have a lot of time to do that, right?
Exactly.
Establish relationships, exactly. So let's look at the class of 24.
Yeah.
Right? He signed 4 offensive linemen, and every single one of them was a 3-star recruit. And then on top of that,
Van Sickle, wasn't Van Sickle a 4-star?
No, Van Sickle, let's see. According to 247, it says here he's a 3-star according to 247, but he's a composite 4-star. So, yeah, okay. But what I'm really more concerned about are tackles. He's just not recruiting enough tackles. Miles Walker the year before.
I'm sorry. Ian Moore was the 4-star I was thinking of. I apologize.
Okay, but technically Van Sickle is a 4-star, but again, I'm more focused. Like, I would rather Ohio State go after 4 offensive tackles and a center every year than try and go after a couple of guards and a couple of tackles. tackles can always move down in my eyes. You can always get a 6'3", 6'4" guy, that's got that length to play tackle. You can always put them on the interior, right? But what you can't do, I think you can. You're seeing it again this year, right? You're seeing it again a couple of years ago. Paris Johnson, first round pick at tackle, played on the inside. Tegra Shabola, for this year's offensive line, came out as an offensive tackle. Going to play guard this year. It happens. It's very common.
Well, hold on, because the last time I understand what you're saying, but that's also kind of flawed because Greg Stroud in 2021, the whole hype was, we're going to have all these offensive tackles play on the offensive line. Well, the offensive line underwhelmed severely that year, and he was fired. Right? Because that was the year you're talking about.
I think a lot of that has to go with coaching. Comes down to coaching, though. I think they have if clearly the talent level is up to par because Paris Johnson was a first round pick, right?
As a tackle,
right? You cannot argue that fact. But what we can argue is maybe Studwara wasn't the right guy, right? Maybe his ideal wasn't right.
Fair.
Right. But
that's fair.
But you see it all across the nation. I mean, Ohio State does it all the time. They drop these guys that are coming in as tackles to guards. So why wouldn't you recruit a bunch of tackles? I think it's actually like it happens more often than you think it does. I think it does.
I think that when you're recruiting, offensive, typically your best offensive linemen in high school are playing offensive tackle, right? So I'm not debating that. Hey, they can play offensive tackle in high school. But what I'm saying is that, offensive tackles are longer. They have quicker feet. Guards are more squat. They play better in a phone booth, right? So Ian Moore played tackle at his high school, if I remember right. Or one of those guys, one of those high recruits that were rated as a guard, played tackle in high school, and he's going to be a guard. So I think that happens a lot. I don't think –
but like Josh Fryer, has Josh Fryer not been bounced around from the inside to the outside? I mean, he has been. It happens more often than you think it does.
Well, hold on, because that's not fair. So
why is that not fair?
Because you're using Josh Fryer as a success story. Who's coaching him?
Who recruited him? Not Justin Frye. That's what I'm getting at. It's a numbers game with recruiting because when you have more quality recruits to choose from, some of them are going to pan out. We're in a situation right now where numbers are lacking significantly along the offensive line. It's a numbers game. That's really what my point is here. It's a numbers game, and they're not recruiting the right kind of players because usually – so how often do we see guards kicking out to tackles that didn't come in as tackles, right? We're more often to see a tackle come in, move him down to guard, and then move him back out to tackle. That is more likely the scenario. Right, so if that's the case, for him to come in as a tackle, move him down to guard, and then move him back out to tackle. That's the more likely scenario. It happens, like I said, it happens more often than you think. But
then name another example other than Paris Johnson.
I just did. Josh Fryer. He did it.
Another example.
Tegra Shabola. He's doing
Tegra Shabola, who hasn't started the game yet.
He's going to start as
That's
a
your
guard
third
this
example?
year. He's going to start as a guard. These are recent examples. He's going to start as a guard.
If that's the third example you have, then I would classify it as not happening as often as you think.
Wow. That's only in the last couple of years, too.
Tegra Shabola doesn't count.
Why not?
Because he doesn't start.
He is starting this year, 100%.
He's going to start this year.
Everything
he's going to start opening day against Akron.
Literally everything that I've read
Where's he going to start?
Moving off. He's at a guard. At a guard.
So you're using an example that's going to play guard, okay? And now your expectation is that he's going to be moved to tackle.
Came in I think that next year when available, I think he kicks out.
If you're saying it happens so often, give me an example that's already occurred.
I did.
If it happens that often, you should be able to name 5 people off the top of your head, right?
Paris just did it. It happens. It happens.
I didn't say it doesn't happen. It's just you're acting like guards are just a non-factor. And I don't believe that's true.
I don't think that
Donovan Jackson, based off of your theory, Donovan Jackson would have never got recruited here. right? Because Donovan Jackson was always rated as a
personally,
guard.
if I'm running the recruiting room, unless he's a layup recruit on the interior who happens to be a 5-star, nobody's going to turn down a 5-star interior lineman. And to be honest with you, listen to this. Donovan Jackson, there was talk about him playing tackle when he arrived, but they opted to keep him on the inside.
But he was recruited as a guard, though, right?
Yes, but they didn't say that they were going to necessarily start him there. They could have played him.
Peter Skoronski, but that you said you would only recruit tackles. That's
Right.
a guy who's not recruited as a tackle. Peter Skoronski was a 5-star center. He ended up moving out to tackle at Northwestern, right? All I'm saying is you can't just recruit tackles. I'm not gonna vilify. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that your recruiting plan is wrong. I'm just saying I don't know if Justin Frye's is wrong. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. I want to be very clear about that. I'm just not going to fire him over a year worth of recruiting work and 2 years on field production. Now, if the offensive line sucks this year, I think we all agree that he should be fired. But if the offensive line is good this year and he still doesn't get those recruits, do you really want to fire him? Is that fair? What happens if the offensive line is really good this year? Who's going to get the credit for that?
I just feel like at the end of the day, he's had time. Like, look, he's got multiple guys on the team that just could not play, and it showed.
I don't understand how you can say he has time, but then you talk about me not being patient with Ryan Day.
He doesn't have time. He doesn't have time. I think that
you said he's had time.
He's had time. Right. He's had time to get this right. He's had time to recruit. He's had time to develop these guys. Look at how crappy Enoch Bimahi played. And he's been in the system for multiple years.
Look, Bimahi was recruited by Justin Frye.
That doesn't matter. But
does matter because you gave him credit for pause, because you would not give him credit for Josh Fryer because we didn't recruit Josh Fryer. But all of a sudden we're going to give him credit for Enoch Bimahi sucking dick.
We're talking about progression here. That's completely different. We're talking about different things.
No, we're talking about providing credit. One guy you gave him credit for, and one guy you're not.
No. What I'm doing is what we were talking about earlier was moving positions, right?
Right.
And do we give him credit for that? Sure. Okay, fine. You can give him credit for moving positions.
I'm not giving him credit for that.
Then fine.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that he's had guys in the system multiple years that are either as good or worse than they were before they got here.
What do you mean they're worse than the way they got?
You really think Enoch Bimahi was a 4-star and should look like that after multiple seasons?
No, but he might have flat out sucked. I don't know, right? Some of those guys.
Then why hasn't he gotten anybody else ready? You just hyped up Luke Montgomery, right?
No, I did not actually.
Or I'm sorry, that was Chris. But
Luke Montgomery should play.
Then why didn't he play? That's a Justin Frye thing, right?
He was a freshman.
So he played. It's not like he didn't play throughout the season. So why wasn't he ready to play in a bowl game? Why didn't they get him ready?
Well, that's
on Justin Frye. That's on Justin Frye in my eyes.
I'm not saying everything. Listen. Hold on. Wait a second. I feel like you think I am not saying that you're wrong. I want to be very, very clear about
I get that.
I'm just saying that
you're playing devil's advocate. I get it.
No, I'm not even playing devil because I'm not saying that you're wrong about being angry at him. You're allowed to be angry at him. I'm saying that you're wrong for wanting to fire him right now based off his recruiting record. That's what I'm saying, right? So here's my next question. If the offensive line is good,
okay,
do you still we don't add any of the other offensive line recruits? Do you still fire him?
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, no.
Yeah. So if
they win a national championship this year and the PFF grade or whatever, Will Howard's got to run around for his life and stiff arm 8 dudes every play. I mean, like, I don't. So, okay, if Will Howard doesn't get touched all year long and the recruiting class doesn't change and we win a national championship, you're saying that you'd still fire him?
I'd still fire him.
So even if I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
The 3-star recruits that he has turned into All-Americans. The 2 twin bros from St. Edwards, they turned into All-Americans. At this point, the example that I'm providing shows that he can transform a 3-star recruit into an All-American. You'd still fire him because
honestly, I think those are bad examples because I think the Armstrong twins were severely underrated after watching their tape. But I get where you're coming from. But yes, I've had enough. Numbers aren't there. Production hasn't been there for me. And I mean, one season out of once every 3 years just doesn't do it for me. And Ohio State, it's got to be every year.
So out of the 9 first-round offensive line, me telling you that stat about the 9, because that made me feel better. That 9 first-rounders, 5 of them were 3-star recruits. That doesn't do anything for you.
No, because Ohio State hasn't developed any of those guys.
So okay.
Have they?
Okay. Huh?
No. Donovan Jackson was talked about a first-round pick coming out of the draft early this past year. And if he would have came out, he would have gotten like a 5th-round grade.
That's not true. We don't know that.
So let me interject in here. Let me steer this real quick. We both agree. We all three agree that the offensive line needs to have a solid year. We all three can agree.
The offensive line needs to have a good year.
Yeah, we can all three agree that Ohio State has the best running back room in the country as well.
Okay,
100%.
Let's define successful offensive line this year. Let's just put a bottom line on that. What is it?
So, Mike, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm just kind of trying to quantify some numbers in my head.
So I don't go on. I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. I would say average over 5 yards a carry for the running backs. Yeah,
that's actually fair. Okay,
that's fair. It is fair. It is very fair. It is. This is the college game. Remember, that's
fair.
5 yards is very fair. 5 yards is very fair. And I think under 1.5 sacks a game.
I think both of those statistics are fair. But are you? I will wait until you're done making your point. I apologize.
No. Again, that's okay. I like quantify. Like it's hard to quantify numbers on the offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. It really is. Like, let's be real here. There's like one stat really, and that's pancakes. And like, how the hell do we go find pancake stats? Like, none of the major statistical outlets really track that, right? But we see it when we watch games. We'll see whether the offensive line has that nastiness in them, which they have not had, which is a direct correlation to coaching in my eyes. Because you follow your leader and you.
Yeah, well, hold on, wait a second. We got to pause there because there's a couple points. Because now you're going to a second point, so I got to interject on the first point.
Just saying, I did get a little off topic, but I'm just saying like it's hard to quantify some stats there. Like I can't say like I want 100 pancakes. Like how are we gonna find that out? Whether that's right? You know what I'm saying? Like IHOP. Like I can go to IHOP and eat 100 pancakes, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding.
Sure. I get you. So. I agree with my.
It's hard to quantify like actual stats on the offensive line.
I'm cool with the stats that Mike was provided.
Sure.
But I also agree. Offensive line play is a very much, you know it when you see it. Right? The 2021 offensive line with Petit Frere, Munford at guard, Harry Miller was supposed to be the center, got hurt. Whippler went in there. Paris Johnson. All those guys were very good. That offensive line was not good.
No, it wasn't.
Right? We knew it wasn't good.
But they didn't see again. I think they didn't play with that intensity. Like I hate to say it, but Michigan's offensive line over the past 3 years has played with an intensity that Ohio State just does not have.
And
that's what I want to see.
And I don't want to reopen. I don't want to reopen this can of worms, but I do want to make it clear that they recruit guards. So I just want to add, and the offensive line that I provided you, those guys were all high NFL draft picks. Well, Munford and Petit Frere were not, but they both have started in the NFL off the tackle.
Sure,
right.
But
Harry Miller was a high draft
pick. They have had a very good recent history of developing the offensive line, so they can take a little bit more risks.
Whatever. I don't want to
as opposed to Ohio State.
But back to the gauge in the offensive line production. You know it when you see it, right? Kind of like we had an argument, and I got somebody in my back pocket, an expert coming on the show here very soon to talk about the Donovan Jackson thing, right? We talked about Donovan Jackson taking a dip in play. I don't know if he took a dip in play. I think that when you have two guys, the guy to your left you gets drafted the 5th pick overall, and the guy to the right of you gets drafted in the 2nd round. And then you're stuck with the dude who played in the Mountain West and a guy who's never taken a snap before, you're going to suck a lot more because now you're doing their jobs instead of just focusing on burying this guy, right? So I don't necessarily see that as a dip in production, but it's hard, but you can't quantify it, right? It's just like an eye thing, right? Sure. So I think we all agree that judging the offensive line is more of a, you see with the talent that Ohio State has, unless Will Howard, Devin Brown, Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson all die in a fiery plane crash, the offense should go humming. right?
Yeah.
So the only person
Sure.
to blame for the off, well, I guess if I don't, it shouldn't happen. But if the wide receiver, if Emeka Egbuka tears his knee and Jeremiah Smith is a bust, that could affect it as well. But we don't expect we expect none of those things to happen. So the only Pandora's box situation is the offensive line. So we will know it if we see it. I fully expect this offensive line to be good. I don't expect average. I expect good. And if it's not good, I'm with you. Fire him. But
Okay.
I'm not going to fire him based off of recruits.
So-
I'm not going to do it. I was
So
told that people
in your
that have
eyes,
coached
so
in
you were
college
just
football have recruited in college football, and they say that that's stupid, and I agree with them.
so how do you quantify then what you're saying? What is good?
No, I'm cool with the stats that you provided.
Okay,
I think that
okay.
those are fair stats.
Yeah.
I am also agree with the point of like
You're
even though
talking
those
like
are
they
fair stats.
they have to pass the look test as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. We'll I don't think if it was
That's fair.
listen,
That's
we
fair.
had the Jeremiah Smith and James Peoples arguments. We put numerical stats on that, right?
Sure.
With the
100%.
offensive line, I feel very confident that we're all gonna agree that it was either good or bad, right?
Sure.
Because if they get pushed around by Mason Graham and the Michigan defensive lineman, then I'll be right there ready to fire him too. I want to be very clear. I want him on the hot seat. He needs to be on the hot seat. But the
Sure.
recruiting, I'm never, ever, ever going to fire a guy for recruiting. It's what you can do on the field. That should be a part of it. Listen, if we fire, it's just like the Tony Alford thing where it's like, all right, did he get the best recruits? No. We always had a good, okay running back, yada, 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 right? So when we fire him, yeah, it'll be an added bonus that maybe we can go get somebody that can recruit, right? But I'm never going to fire a guy for something that doesn't happen on the field.
I mean,
right?
I get it. I get where you're coming from with that.
The second issue I have is that we're giving we've talked 31 minutes about Justin Frye being fired for recruiting. But Ryan Day, the Ryan Day thing, it's like, what do you mean? This is a 5-star recruit. These are 5-star recruits you're talking about. So Ryan Day has an integral part in all of these recruitments. So what's going on? Why are you not sharing the blame with me in that? Especially since I would view Ryan Day as more important in regard to on-field performance. Does that make sense? You know, the attitude, the swagger, the toughness. That's the man who called the reverse against Notre Dame on 4th and 1.
I do want to point out also that there might have been some NIL factors here. Supposedly, Sanders was asking for like a suite to all home games and like a home for his parents to relocate. Over $1 million in just NIL upfront money. So
I would like to add to that point after you're done.
I don't know if Ohio State balked at those things and said, well, you're a freshman, you haven't done anything, you can earn it, we can give it to you, when you're a starter in year 2, like, if you're a starter, yeah, sure, we'll give it to you. Maybe he bought, I don't know. Like those are some of the things that we aren't privy to that kind of information. There's just a bunch of rumors flying around online. So, somebody could say, well, yeah, he wanted $5 million and Tennessee gave it to him. Well, who the hell really knows? But I do think that aspect of it played a part because, when you're looking at the two programs, like, you want to go to a mid-level SEC team or do you want to play in the Big Ten for a national championship contender every year? So I do think that there are other factors, not just on the field factors, that push his decision as well.
I agree. And shout out to Griffin. Thank you for joining us in the chat. To add on to that, I also spoke to some people, these same people, and I asked them, like, hey, I was just trying to get some insight into the recruiting process, right? Because I know, Michael, you're the resident recruiting expert, and I give you props for that. And I've been recruited at a very, very small, teeny tiny nipple-ish level, but there's still things that we just don't know. We don't know the involvement, right? And I did talk to people, so I wanted to make sure I talked to someone who's in the room when they're talking to these guys. And the feedback that I got in regard to David Sanders too was like, that guy was never going to come here. Sure. That was kind of the vibe. That was what they were said that should not be taken. Nobody should get the blame. Because I said, well, who? Because I said, if he should, because they said no, he shouldn't get fired. That's stupid. Stop bringing that up. I said, okay, if he shouldn't be fired, who's to blame? Does Ryan Day deserve the blame? And they're like, no, this is not. No one should get blamed for this. That kid was never coming to Ohio State. We're talking about a kid who cried about his mom coming to the games, and he's from North Carolina. Tennessee
Right.
is, I guess it is like substantially closer.
Much closer.
That's where he wants. Yeah, money probably NIL might have played a role, and if that's the case, no one should get blamed for that either. So I do think that I agree with your point of like there are some asterisks to David Sanders Jr. that maybe not blame it, but that furthers my point of like if we have all these things that are up in the air that we don't know, the only thing we do know and the only thing we do see is what's happening on the field. So that's why I'm not gonna be.
But if the Ohio State coaching staff knew that he wasn't actually an option, why did they invest so much time and resources to recruit him? If someone else on the outside could get that feeling and they couldn't.
Oh, well,
it just doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that goes back to Justin Frye. That's on Justin Frye because he's like, okay, this is my guy. You're like, hey, Ryan, I want to go after these guys. Right? Because there's got to be some coordination between the position coaches and the head coach as to which guys they go after, right? Right? They probably has to sign off on these guys.
I think
right? That again, it's a numbers game. And I think that's where Justin Frye is lacked significantly. He's not offering enough prospects.
So I don't again. So the David Sanders Jr. thing, I understand what you're saying, right? Why would you invest? The issue is that first of all, I think there's a couple other factors. First of all, you've already invested. By the time I think he figured it out, they've already invested a lot of time. You're on third base. You might as well try to run.
You just ride it out.
You might as well try to run to home and see what happens. Throw up a Hail Mary, right?
Okay.
We see that a lot in recruiting too, where schools are not very interested and they still go after them. We saw that tight end that just committed to Michigan talk shit about Ohio State.
Sure.
Very nice kid, very nice interview, but we know that Ohio State did not go hot and heavy at that kid, and he was on campus a couple times, I believe. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff happens all the time. I don't know. I do know that Mickey Mariotti, I think it's Mariotti, right? Is the recruit. He's like a lot of the gun.
Yeah.
And drive behind the recruiting and the coordination and a lot of that stuff. So I don't.
No, not Mickey Mariotti. Mick's the strength and conditioning coach.
I apologize.
Mark Pantoni.
Mark Pantoni.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yes. How could I forget? He's the one who emailed me. But so there's a lot of factors. I don't know. There's a lot of but again, that's another reason why I'm never going to fire anybody based off of recruiting, because there's so many factors we're not aware of. There's just so many. Like, I just don't care. I would rather you take, guys like Olu Fashanu, who went to Penn State, was a starter for multiple years, all Big Ten, all American, first round pick. Get that guy. Get the 3-star. Do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Well,
when
if that's the case, then where are these 3-star guys that have cracked the 2D? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, where are they?
Well, this is Justin Frye's third year. This will be his third year.
So they should be cracking it, right?
I feel like that's fair. I feel like expectations should be higher on Carson.
Do we give him credit for transfers?
Montgomery, Tegra Shabola, huh?
Do we give him credit for transfers?
I don't know. It depends how I'm not telling you what to do.
No, I'm just saying, like, because like Seth McLaughlin is pretty much a finished product. They don't really have to do much.
I agree with that,
right?
But how much credit do you want to give him?
What about Josh Simmons? But Josh Simmons, though, clearly not a finished product.
Yeah.
So who gets the credit then?
That's up to you. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
I'm not going to. I'm just telling you.
See, there I'd actually give credit to Justin Frye for.
That's cool.
Because especially like we talked about last year. Early on in the season, he looked like he was the weak link of the offensive line, and as the year went on, he got better. Yeah. So I will give Justin Frye some credit for that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair stance. Right. And if I think that it's very clear if the offensive line is bad, you fire him. If the offensive line is good, I don't care who you recruit. I don't care if you take nothing but walk-ons. If that's what you need, brother, do it. As long as the offensive line keeps performing at a high level, I don't care who you have, just do it. But Chris, what else you got, bro? We kind of
to close this out before we hit that 40-minute mark. You're absolutely right. Hey, is 5 yards a carry easily obtainable with the running back room we have? Absolutely.
Yeah.
1.5 sacks a game. Hey, guess what? We got this Will Howard who is 79 yards short of 1,000 on his career rushing. Okay. Mm-hmm. He can improvise without question. And again, it's that, it when you see it, it's that, holy shit, this offensive line has taken over this game.
Yeah.
It's those moments. And at the same time, going back to Sanders before we can close this up. Hey, if old boy wanted mom and dad and grandma and grandpa up in the suite, if he wanted that fresh meal, maybe that was the strategic plan of closing off recruiting that last weekend. Like, I mean, there's both ends of it. There's definitely both ends of it.
Chris.
Let's not burn the till. Let's not extort everything we've got, and we're sitting here with empty pockets looking at the future for this kid as well. I mean, there's both sides.
Chris basically brings up a good point.
Very good points.
This is college football too, right? We've already seen there have been millions and millions of examples of coaches offering scholarships just to get other coaches to offer a scholarship to that kid. Sure. So what's to stop one coaching staff or NIL from understanding?
Anybody would have taken David Sanders. Let's be real.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we see the shadiness. We see the shadiness that coaching staffs and recruiting classes do.
Sure.
So what's now in this new era of NIL? What's to stop Ohio State from being like, you know what, we're not going to get this guy.
Let's just drive up the price on somebody else.
I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying Chris brings up an interesting point with we're not going to get this guy. We don't want this guy. Let's drive it up. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And we've seen Ohio State walk away in this day and age of NIL, and I credit Ryan Day for doing this because I like that of walking away from recruits. Because that the first thing out of their mouth is NIL.
Yeah, what's the running back that committed to Oregon?
Raiola was like that too.
Well, Raiola was like that.
Justin Scott was like that.
Why am I blanking? Well, yeah, Justin Scott was like that because he just wanted a big bag.
Yeah.
Who was it? He made a visit here too.
Ball.
Who was it?
Ball or was it Riggs?
No, Jordan Davidson. Jordan Davidson. So all the chatter going into his Ohio State official visit was that he was going to commit to Ohio State. Leaving, I think he asked for a bag, and they didn't want to give it to him. And Phil Knight opened his pocketbook and said,
"And I think that's great.
Here you go."
I think that again, I don't give Ryan Day a lot of credit, but I like that because you want guys that want to play for you, right? And I admire that, right? Of course, that doesn't mean he's a good coach because I also admire Dabo Sweeney not taking a transfers, and that's not the right way to win games. So, but I do admire it as a focal point and a morality thing. But yeah. So, do we have anything else about Justin Frye before we move on? And again, I'm working really hard to try to get an offensive line expert on with us within the upcoming weeks to really break down Frye's effectiveness and what's going on.
Good.
With it.
Okay. So what Todd, you want to move on to the Ohio State starting quarterback announcement?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, I think that we all knew that this was going to come. There was some chatter that Devin Brown was giving Will Howard a battle, but ultimately I think Ryan Day made the right choice. Will Howard was brought in from Kansas State for a reason, to be the starting quarterback, to give Ohio State more of a power run game as opposed to a finesse game, which I think is more what Devin Brown brings. I think you're looking at more of a JT Barrett type of runner with Will Howard, more of a bruiser, not going to light it up and turn the corner and go 80 yards, but he'll turn for 40 and, occasionally make that run like JT had against Minnesota in the snow. Do you guys remember that one? It's like 86. Right. It was like 86 yards, and you see him hit the 40. You're like, he's gonna get tackled, and he just keeps going, and he just kept going, and he just kept going, and he just barely made it to the end zone, right?
I just always remember the CJ Stroud run against Michigan State.
Where he just was at 51 yards, or he just took off on the sideline. We're just like, okay, so we have a running quarterback now here?
Never did it again.
Yeah, nope, never did it. Not until Georgia. But anyways, I think Ryan Day obviously made the right move. I like the timing as well. I think to do it a couple of weeks before the season opener is here, as opposed to waiting and having it carry over on the season, just doesn't make sense for this team. This is a national championship caliber team. And, I think this is the right choice. Now, I think the bigger question here is, how do we stack up the backups? Because there's chatter that Julian Sayin is battling for that 2 spot with Brown. So and Aaron Nolan apparently, from what I read just the other day, the light bulbs come on, and Nolan's starting to play a little bit better. He's starting to get that confidence that he had when he was a junior out in Georgia. Because his senior year he was injured a little bit, so he wasn't quite as effective. But it looks like he's fully recovered. He's got that confidence back, and he's starting to sling it as well. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the whole quarterback situation?
Chris, you want to hit it first?
Hey, get any of these lingering what ifs out of the way. Get focused on week 1. Will Howard comes in. Let's be real. The size alone, 6'4", 235. You got almost 6,000 yards passing. Like I said, 79 yards short of 1,000 on the ground. 67 touchdowns, 19 on the ground. They bring back that RPO possibility even around the red zone, which you think that's where if we have any designed quarterback runs of a sort, that's probably where the bulk of it will come. But I think it's base level. Hey, you're coming in camp, you've played against all this Big 12 speed, you've got game reps, you've got actual meaningful, purposeful game reps, you've been in that fourth quarter, you've got that mentality. Can you, when times get tough, can you right the ship? Can you overcorrect? Can you steer it back in the lane? Can you keep the train on the tracks? And I don't think Devin Brown has it yet. And I think it showed in the bowl game. He could have had a phenomenal spring. But again, I think you go with experience. You go with someone who's, again, probably the best defenses they're going to play is every day in practice.
Yeah.
And get your lumps, get picked off, pick your head up, keep going at it, accept what is for what it is, and just keep driving. And like I said, can he keep the train from going off the tracks, and can he steer it back clear of center?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I don't think there's any debate, right? Will Howard's the dude. Well, we heard all offseason that Ryan Day wants Dylan Gabriel. That didn't happen. I do believe that is true. I do believe that that's true. Ryan Day wants Michael Pratt. Well, who doesn't? Michael Pratt would be winning the Heisman this year if he didn't go to the NFL. So I believe that too. But his third choice was always Will Howard. And I was on this podcast, and Mike, I wanted the kid from Washington State. Oh God, I can't remember his name now. Cam Ward.
Cam Ward. Yep. Florida, Miami.
Yes, but there's a very blatant reason why Ryan Day didn't pick Cam Ward. Right, Ryan Day is aware of the situation. Whether whoever believes he's on the hot seat or not, he knows he thinks he's on the hot seat. He thinks he's got to beat Michigan. So he went, and instead of getting the flashy guy that throws up YOLO balls,
definitely the safer option.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And just like Chris talked about with Devin Brown, it's not an indictment on Devin Brown. I don't hold Devin Brown responsible at all for that bowl game. That bowl game was just a mess. That's
on the offensive line.
Well, I mean that wasn't my problem.
Part of the reason, but there's a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, no, the offensive line was a problem, and one of Enoch Mahi was the biggest problem. But the second biggest problem is that they moved Matthew Jones, who was a 4-star center, to center for some reason, and he couldn't play center, which is the strangest thing. But whatever. But also, Carson Hinsman was suspended for that, and we still don't know why, and we still don't know who was responsible for that. So
was he really suspended? No, I'm just kidding.
They said he was bumped and bruised, but suspiciously it was right after he did a podcast where we talked about NIL. Interesting. But anyways, regardless, I don't blame Devin Brown for that god awful situation. But I do think that Will Howard, I think that Will Howard has an extremely high floor. I've always said that. I also said that he had a lower ceiling, but that was before they hired Chip Kelly. Since they've hired Chip Kelly, I've been like, you know what? I've been going back and watching some Oregon games. And Oregon they had a lot of quarterbacks that were not good. And they were very, Dennis Dixon was not a good quarterback, right? There was another quarterback that was drafted by the Steelers. It was also not good. Marcus Mariota was really the only guy he had that really slung the bitch. And they were very productive. I think Will Howard fits that really well, and he throws the ball better. He doesn't throw the ball as good as Marcus Mariota, but he throws the ball better than pretty much every other person at an Oregon. And they do perfectly. I don't, I'm not going to be putting money on it, but we could be talking. Will Howard probably will be getting an invite to New York. And I don't think that Devin Brown I think that Devin Brown could have done the same thing. I'm not shitting on Devin Brown, but I do think that there was going to be growing pains, and I don't think that Ryan Day wants to deal with the growing pains.
According to NCAA 25, it's going to be Jack Sawyer who wins the Heisman. So.
Dude, that's crazy. I've been seeing that. Like, I saw that on mine too. Like, it's wild. But
I was like,
yeah,
what?
He just wants to get rid of. He doesn't
like
want
24, 25 sacks, something absurd.
Yeah.
So like, okay, cool. Then I guess.
But yeah, I don't think that he wants to deal with the growing pains, so I'm cool with that. Now, as far as the backup goes, I still think it's Devin Brown. Devin Brown fits the Will Howard. This is a long season. So to be playing this game where you're going to play Julian Sayin because he's going to be the starter next year, those days are over, my friend.
Are they though?
Yeah, I think Sayin's going to get some snaps because he's that good.
I honestly think we're in the era where you're going to want to play more of your depth as opposed to shortening up the leash.
No. I'm sorry. Let me reiterate. Let me rephrase what I meant. If we were in the day of pre-playoff, I would agree with you that they might play Sayin over Devin Brown because Sayin is the future.
Okay.
And they think that
Sayin specifically for this year, you're going to want Brown to be ready.
Oh my God. You want Devin Brown to be ready. And he fits the Will Howard more. He's a younger, shittier version of Will Howard. Like, that's who you got to get ready, bro.
Okay.
So I think Julian Sayin will get some snaps. I was thinking about drafting in our fantasy draft last week.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
I can buy that. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it is the right decision. Chris, you know, do you have any extra thoughts on this whole thing? I mean,
like I said, you're going
more the depth chart than the starter.
No, you're going to see a lot more total shifts of first string, second string with these games. Like I said, you've got a vastly bigger schedule, and God forbid, don't ever clip this, but if Will Howard goes down, then it's shit. You know, is the season it? You know?
Well, maybe Quinshon Judkins and Travion Harrison revive the T offense because
right.
I've seen them a couple photos of them practicing it, so maybe I don't know.
And let's not forget, Will Howard got hurt last year. That's how he wound up at the transfer portal. He got hurt. Avery Johnson went in there and
played well, not great.
Oh, okay. Okay. You're sounding like a bias. I was trying not to sound like a biased Ohio State fan. Kansas State fans are not worried. Let's put it that way.
Well,
they're not worried.
I mean, their bar is significantly lower. You know what I'm saying?
The people that I've talked to that are closer to that program believe that Avery Johnson was going to start over Will Howard this year. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what I've heard.
I mean,
but the point of the conversation
he was a very high recruit coming out. You know, like he is highly thought of, but like he really only played in one game, and
I'm not a Kansas State expert. I'm just telling you what I heard.
His completion, like in the bowl game against NC State, against a top 25 team, his completion percentage was 45.
Listen,
he threw for 178 yards with 2 touchdowns. Granted, you didn't throw any picks or get sacked, but still, though, it's like.
Listen, all I'm saying, I'm not.
He did run well. He did run for 71 yards and a score too, though.
All I'm saying is Will Howard got hurt last year. That's all I meant. But that was, you know.
But I don't know if they're making such a monstrous upgrade that they believe they are from Howard to Johnson.
I didn't say they thought it was a monstrous upgrade.
Well, right. I'm just saying, like, I'm sure that there are some Kansas State fans out there that are like, yeah, this guy is like leaps and bounds better than Will Howard. Where Will Howard was pretty damn good. He helped him win a Big 12 championship,
I don't think anybody's disputing that. I think that you're not going to find an Ohio State fan praying for the days of Common Core. That does not exist.
Right.
But you will find that fan in Kansas State.
Sure. Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Of course, we're not setting expectations too high. We don't need get Ohio State fans back into the perspective. We don't need C.J. Stroud. We don't need Justin Fields. We need and put the national championship aside, we need a Craig Krenzel. You know,
we don't even need that.
We can put him out and take off.
We need a pre-med student who just distributes the ball. I'm good with that.
Craig Krenzel is probably a good example because
I'll take that. I'll take a little Krenzel.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the roster is good enough to where McCord was going to be fine in this offense too.
I think so too.
McCord's issue is that Ryan Day just lost trust in him, and
Well,
McCord lost trust in Day. Day.
McCord also just locked on to Marvin Harrison Jr. all day long, and if he wasn't open, it was mass panic and just take a sack or throw it up and do something stupid. So I don't know. I mean, I wonder. I'm very curious. Like, a lot of people are really high on McCord at Syracuse. I really wonder to see how he'll do. I'm very curious.
There's no question that McCord can sling the bitch. We've all seen him. You know, I saw him. I've been seeing him in person a number of times, in warmups and stuff. And the guy can fucking sling it. He
can't dance though.
Huh?
He can't dance though.
But especially if Rondé Gadsden Jr. stays healthy, Syracuse they're going to suck because that Fran Brown is going from a defensive backs coach to a head coach. Yeah. Hello, growing pains, but that offense could be.
They'll be 6-6, right?
If they're lucky. But I think that Rondé Gadsden and McCord's going to be a fun connection. It's going to be like what was the Georgia State team that Georgia State sucked, but they had that quarter Dolegala to like Penny Hart. I think was that. No one watches Thursday Night Football. How dare you?
let me ask you this.
Not down from action.
We're talking.
Wyoming had a good one too. Brett Smith too.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, we're talking impact, and we're talking impact of a transfer. If we were to put this poll out, do we need the biggest impact of our transfers? We're talking Will Howard, we're talking Quinshon Judkins, we're talking Caleb Downs, we're talking McLaughlin. Do we need the biggest impact out of that transfer than the other three? Is he the highest one that we need to see produce at a high level?
That's a great question, Michael. Do you want to hit it first? Because I feel like
it's easy for me. It's McLaughlin. Along the offensive line, like, again, this is my one fear for this team. Yeah,
we're agreeing.
My one fear for this team, like my biggest concern, is along the offensive line. I think there's depth at safety. I think there's depth at running back. I think there's depth at the majority of the rest positions on the team. Maybe not quite as much at linebacker, although there's some young guys there. They just don't have experience. It's the offensive line for me. This team will only go as far as the offensive line does. And if it doesn't perform up to that level, then we're talking about another disappointing Ohio State season, one that seems like every year where they come in with title expectations and fall flat in their face. And if the offensive line can get that push, can get that nasty, can move people, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see stalemates. I don't want to see 3rd and 1 and they're getting their asses pushed back.
Yeah.
Like, I've had enough of that. Enough of it. It's time for them to move the line. So we might see that, and we'll see it early too, I think. That first 3rd and 1, if Ryan Day doesn't say, hell, I'm going to run it right up the gut and see what my team does, I think he's going to. I think he wants to know the mentality of this team.
Hope, yeah.
Well, we don't need to see Ryan Day do that. We need to see Chip Kelly do that.
Well, I mean,
if Ryan Day's in charge, it's going to be a triple.
No. You know what I meant.
Ryan Day's going to call a reverse option and then yell at Lou Holtz.
Oh, God.
Or who's an Akron coach? Gary Faust, you son of a bitch. But no, I agree with you. Seth McLaughlin all the way. He unlocks it. I've said it all off season. It's my hot take for the year. I think that this offensive line unit is going to be. We're going to look back on this team. We're going to say, man, that offensive line was the most. That's the best. That was the best unit. Better than the running backs.
Are we talking Joe Moore award here? Or
I don't know, because that's the Joe Moore award's weird, man. Like, so there's a lot. You got to have like 1st round picks and shit. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Michigan won it. And they didn't have 1st round picks.
No, but like all 5 of those guys were like 6-year starters.
Sure.
They were all confident. They should be in the running for it. But yeah, I think McLaughlin, he is key to that. He's a very intelligent anchor. I think that I think Carson Hinsman really struggled to make line calls in an appropriate, quick fashion. I think that's another reason why Donovan Jackson got held up. McLaughlin's not going to have those issues. McLaughlin figures out the snapping thing, which was only an issue last year. And a lot of people are saying that might have been a Jalen Milroe issue. Then that we're ace, right? And that allows you to take a guy like Carson Hinsman, who when Carson Hinsman was good. Carson Hinsman was very good. His issue is that he sometimes is in the wrong spot. So you put him in a place like guard where he doesn't have to think as much as center, you might be good. Maybe move Josh Frye to guard, maybe get Tedrick Shabulla in there. I really do think that McLaughlin is the key to unlocking this offensive line and the depth really showcase. I really, really think that this offensive line is going to be good this year if Justin Frye is worth his salt. So I 100% agree with the McLaughlin take.
Chris, answer your own question.
I literally brought it up to get the both of you to agree that Seth McLaughlin is the most crucial transfer this season.
Yeah, you can bring us together. All right, so we're at 59 minutes. So would we roll through? We're going to do Big Ten rankings next week.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do them next week so that we could just focus in on that. I mean, no, like we talked about before the show started. No Big Ten teams will play this coming weekend, so we don't have to rush through and do that, and give us a little bit more time to see if there's any injuries happening. I mean, USC just named their starting quarterback yesterday, Miller Moss, which we were tipped off on by Donovan. We appreciate that tip. So if you've been listening, you had an idea that this was coming. So, you know, I'm sorry. There's so much that can happen between now and then. You know, there's multiple teams have suffered, have seen players get hurt, which obviously changes how, a team outlook would be. So I think waiting an extra week, I think is, it's just a little bit more fair for how the season will play out.
Well, the biggest Big Ten injury is definitely occurred to Rutgers. They're starting out linebacker who's just been a dynamo the last couple of years is out for the year. So that's absolutely devastating for that team. Yeah. Well, before we close it out, I do want to give out best bets. We're going to do best bets. We're going to every week we're going to do three bets that we love. I don't expect you guys to do it this week, but I do have two. There's only 2 games that feature FBS versus SBS. So Florida State giving 10 points to Georgia Tech. I'm going to bet on that. I'm going to bet on SMU giving 24.5 to Nevada. So I'm throwing that out there. We'll start this season out and figure out what we got going on. I'm not going to do 3 because there's only 2 FBS versus FBS. I'm not going to bet on Montana State and New Mexico.
So there's no line for Murray State and Missouri?
I don't think there's even a line on that one.
And that's what I'm saying. There's nothing. I don't see anything.
There's lines on Montana State and New Mexico. There's New Mexico State, New Mexico, and then there's a line on Delaware State, Hawaii. But you have to. I'm not doing that.
No, you're taking FSU.
Yeah. I think that.
They're giving 10.5. That's a lot, but
10.
I do think that they're
10.
Oh, you got 10?
It's 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Mike Norvell is a great coach. He's going to want to really unleash DJU. So
yeah,
we'll
I think that there's a significant talent gap between the two teams. Although the one thing that I would potentially be concerned about is them playing overseas and playing at a weird, stadium, etc. Because Aviva, it's like part of the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Notre Dame played Navy last year to open the season in the same stadium there in Dublin. Typically,
do you think that Ireland was like, "Hey, we really want Florida State in the Cunnilingus Classic"? Is that what?
Probably. I mean, typically they do usually they'd ideally like to have
Notre Dame. That makes sense. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish in Ireland. That makes sense. The Florida State Seminoles do not.
But no. Yeah.
If you've heard the pool for that game when Notre Dame went over there, they had the online the queue for it. When those tickets went online, there was over 1 million in the queue for that game.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Do we know kickoff time for that Florida State Georgia Tech?
11 a.m.
Yep.
11 a.m. Okay.
Regular football time.
I'm gonna miss part of it, I'm sure, because it's my birthday that week. So I'm sure the lady has something scheduled and planned.
You're in August, baby. You're in August, baby, too.
That's right.
Oh, I didn't know that. When's your birthday?
Oh, I'm in March.
26.
Chris, you're in March.
Mine was Saturday.
Oh, that's right. You brought that up.
Yeah, August 17th.
Look at you.
Yeah, getting old.
Oh, shit.
Man,
all right,
yeah, let's wrap it up. Any last thoughts, Chris?
That's a 9 a.m. start this Saturday for me. I get my coffee on for that one. Oof.
Josh.
No, man, I'm done. Follow me on Twitter or X at Josh Keatley 16. Definitely check out my work over at Buckeyes Wire. Ohio State signed a new contract with Evan Williams Bourbon, so was able to write about that today.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, well.
the new official bourbon partner of Ohio
Oh,
State.
that's cool. Caleb Downs got sponsored by NIL deal with Robach. If you go, it's
What?
like an athletic Robach.
I thought it was Beats by Dre. He signed with
No,
Beats
he
by
got
Dre.
another one.
Right?
Yeah, he did Beats by Dre too. But
That's
there's a
what I heard.
Robach. There's a Robach one, and they make like men's and women like athletic clothing.
I
And
saw
they've
one.
made
Yeah.
they look amazing. Like I'm gonna go and buy it. Yeah. Like go look at it. Like here, I'll
Yeah.
share you. I'll send it to you the tweet because I
I don't
think it got
need
posted up
athletic.
yesterday.
Okay, I get all my mesh
It's
tank
not-
tops on Amazon.
It's not.
That's all I need.
It's like golf. It's like golf shirts and shorts. Like it's more like nice athletic gear.
Dude, I already know.
The polos that they had that Downs was wearing was fucking awesome. I need to get one.
Dude, I already know how to shop. I go to Goodwill. I get the coolest NASCAR shirts. I cut the sleeves off. Then I got a nice pair of jean shorts. Just make sure the bottom of my ass cheek hangs out, and that's my professional attire. So.
All right. You can follow me on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, at Mike F. Chen. Unfortunately, you cannot read my stuff at Buckeyes Wire anymore because I am the lead over there at Fighting Irish Wire. So, you know what? I'm going to take a promotion. Come on. Wouldn't you take a promotion?
No, I would. I just like say it.
You know, like that's the goal, right? To be the boss. Yeah, no, it's going great over there. I got a great team, Jeff and Tim. They're my guys. They're doing great work over there. We've had some decent success, but got to keep it up. We don't like to be stagnant. We always like to be getting better. So that's what we're doing. Maybe I'll come back too. Maybe I'll come back.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll be back at Buckeyes Wire sometime. But we'll see. All right, that's it for us. We appreciate the listen. Once again, if you could like, subscribe, follow us on our YouTube page over there at the Ohio State of Mind. That would be great. We need to up those numbers. And if you guys don't have anything else, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.